What's going on, guys? Bladezilla here, and today we are taking a look at the Shirogorov F3 Aquatic. Now, this has been a knife that's been around for a little bit of time here. I'd say, 6 months or so? And it is the first edition of the 4-part series of the F3 knives. So first being water, so aquatic. Second being earth, which is the terrace. The third being fire, which is the Ignis, and the fourth being the wind, which we don't know what it's called yet, but I'm sure it's called wind or tornado or whatever you want to call it. Just a quick reminder before I get into things, this is not a super detailed review. This is more of a just overview like we'd have in a coffee shop hanging out, taking a look at knives, and just kind of going over things. I want to reiterate that a lot of the knives I do show on here are available online on my website, bladezilla.ca, with a nice little shout out right now. We've got the Ignis in the store, only a couple of those left, but they are available with lots of great pictures. I'm now shipping, I believe, to the US. I think I activated that tonight, but should be set up. Nice little plug, bladezilla.ca, and take a look. Otherwise, that's not what this is about. Today it's about this knife. So let's take a look at the Aquatic from Shirogorov, do a bunch of comparisons, and just chat. So here we go. Aquatic. Blade length and overall measurements. Reminder of the camera angle, which I'm sure we'll bring up multiple times throughout this video. 4 inches OAL, overall length of the blade. Sharpened, maybe slightly less. And then full length of the entire F3, we are looking at 8 3/4, 8 5/8, somewhere in that conversation. It is a big knife, but I'll be honest, it's certainly not as big as you would think. Okay, it carries very well. In fact, I believe Metal Complex, this is his preferable Shirogorov model because of the liner lock, because of the carry factor, etc. So keep that in mind. It definitely carries smaller than the blades kind of give you an indicator of. Comparison-wise, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit here. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. We'll compare it with a couple other knives, both in the same class, in the same model, and we'll start things off here. So first and foremost, we're going to do the standard Sebenza, small and large. So there's your small, and remember the angle, if I move it up here, it's going to kind of change the size quite substantially. So there's the small Sebenza. We are going to take the large Sebenza 31, Thunderbird gear version. It's my favorite Sebenza that I own because it's glass blasted S45. So there's, I'd say that's more representative when it's on top like that. But beautiful knife. So there's your Chris Reeves. We are going to go into the Shirogorovs with my beautiful Neon. That's a Neon Zero Walter Randolph. So there's that. We're going to do the Stellar, which is a nice size up between these two, remember? So we go Neon, Stellar, and then the 95mm length, and then the 111. Unfortunately, I don't have a 111 today. The one I've been using for a lot of my videos grew some legs and decided to go over to a friend. So until a few days from now I'll have a couple more, but anyway, another conversation. So that is the Stellar size, beautiful. And remember, if we compare that on both sides of the knife, that is always something I like to show, just the perspective of the camera and how it's angled down. So there is the Stellar. And then if we go into some fancier pieces, we have the F95, which is a beautiful blade. I'm not going to be a little more careful here, nothing touches. But there's your F95 T for turtle. And this is a beautiful, beautiful blade. I don't know if I've done a video on this one yet. I will certainly do one. Let's see if the camera wants to focus here. All the micro milling on there, just a beautiful, beautiful knife. Probably my favorite in the collection currently. We have the Quantum as well, which I don't think I've shown this one on the channel yet. It's a Custom Division Quantum, which gives a little more width to it, so it kind of feels pretty cool compared to the F3, but also another very fancy knife that I don't think I've done a video on the channel, but I'm sure I will at some point here. Beautiful, beautiful custom division knife. And let's take a quick peek what I have in the fancy collection. We've got another stellar, full custom, beautiful knife. Gonna have to do a video on that one definitely as the time goes on here. But that is your stellar from TKI 2023, I believe, with a nice, beautiful clip on there. Just got that this week, so I'm sure we will see that on the channel coming down the pipe. But that is not what this is about. It is about this beautiful F3, which I love. So let's talk about this knife. Let's do a couple comparisons, and we'll start. So what is so special about this knife, and how does it compare with, say, the Ignis? How does it compare with the Terrace? How does it compare with all of them? And quite frankly, why on earth do we want this one? Well, let's do that comparison now. I've done the video on the Ignis, so let's throw that up. Beautiful knife. Personal. I think that one, the handle looks probably the best in the series. And let's take a look at the Terrace. That should actually give you a real nice kind of look at how everything, perspective on things, how the bottom knife, the Terrace, looks bigger probably than the top Ignis. It's so funny how that does that. But this should give you a good overview of some of the colors. I'm going to put some of these blades away. Reminder, I am wrapped around a tripod when I do these videos, and unfortunately sometimes I bump my hand on things that I don't really mean to. So anyway, there's the cool kind of comparison between the three. You know, I've done the video on the Terrace. You guys gave me some great feedback on this. A lot of thoughts of loving the kind of bronze and gold colors that are kind of hiding in the black background. Looks great. Everyone loves that knife. Okay, the Ignis, I think personally it's the best of the three in looks, because red, black, and gold just work timelessly. I love the back spacer and how it matches the clip. Probably one of my all-time faves, I'd say. Obviously, throughout all three series, the collar of the hardware, the back spacer, the clip, and the bead all match, which is real cool. I still have a couple of these on the site, keep that in mind. And then the Aquatic, up close and personal. I hope you've seen that by now, because we were like 10 minutes in probably. But same kind of thing. Clip, back spacer, pivot collar, and that beautiful bead. Comparing the three themselves, we will also show the bead. I'm going to try to get this to focus. So, I don't know how close I can get, but there you go. That's the Terrace bead, a little different. The Aquatic bead, also unique, a little bit different. See, there's kind of some waves on there. And then the Fire, the Ignis, also a little different. So that kind of, instead of left to right wave, it's kind of up and down and fire. It looks cool. Real cool comparison there. Between all three models, there isn't a whole lot of difference other than the blade. So ergonomically, they're all identical as far as I know. I can't, between them, I can't see any differences. Originally there was talk of the jimping being a little different, but I think it's all the same. As far as I can tell, I think everything's the same. There could be very subtle changes internally. I don't know, and I'm not opening these up, but that is that. Okay, so I think at this point I'm comfortable enough to put away the other two. The main difference between the three is the blade steel. So let's start with the Ignis. So pretty standard M390. It's a point of contention for this knife because a lot of people wanted to see a different steel, because M390 is kind of their plain Jane. Keep in mind, there's nothing wrong with M390. It's great, in a lot of cases, a very desirable steel to use. It's just not exciting. So a lot of people, that's kind of the knock on the Ignis. It still has all the other features of the other two. It's just, M390 is kind of boring. Boring in a good way, though. The Terrace, I think, was S90V. So as you can see, different steel, which is cool, but that's kind of the route they went with that. S90V instead of what's on this guy, which we will get into here. Oh, cool. And then the Aquatic. Probably has the highest demand right now of the three because of Vanax 37. Not common. Especially not common for Shirogorov. I can't think of what else have they done that on. I think they did some Uniquantums with Vanax. But real cool, super resistant to water, right? And that's kind of the whole point of that was like fire, you'd think would, okay, what blade? I don't really know, but with Ignis, what blade is really resistant to heat? I don't know personally, but it would have been cool to have something. So anyway, the Vanax itself, I think, is super cool and unique, and you know, despite it not being M390, obviously, like the Ignis, I think that's kind of why people really, really love these aquatics, because they're rated well for the marine environment. They don't rust. It's like literally almost impossible to rust Vanax, and it's definitely a steel that I feel is underutilized in the market. And I just think it's cool. And let's be honest, Vanax sounds flippin' cool, pun intended. Even though this is a flippin' knife, right? I can do that. I can do dad jokes. Ergonomically, let's take a look. I know some people, this may be the first time they're ever seeing this knife, so I always have to do this. But I'm an extra large 6'3" guy, and this fits my paw real well. Good jimping, and I've still got, as you can see, quite a bit of room on the back of the handle here. So nice kind of smooth tapered feel to the entire knife itself. And then as we go around the carbon fiber here, as I move this light around hopefully for you, you can see there's a bunch of micro milling done on the carbon itself, and just beautiful, beautiful angles. Just all the light reflects around. You see deep blues, you see blacks, turquoise, teals, everything but the aquatic sink. And it's unique, you know, they're all a little different, which is what makes them so cool. So you can kind of see the pattern of, I almost want to say it is like wavy, right? And that's the point. Because if we compare the Ignis, right, you can also see that it looks like fire. Like crackling fire, which I think is just so cool. You know, the Terrace, it's like, oh, it looks like Earth. You know, it's a little boring, to be honest. But people like that. It's subdued. Whereas the Aquatic, when it came out, it's a very loud F3 because it's brighter. But I think it looks great. Hard to find lately. Anyway, let's start going over this knife like we talked about. So good jimping, nice thick jimping as well on the knife. And as we go down the backspacer, they're matching that jimping to the pattern of the backspacer, which is just so cool. It just kind of completes the entire look of it, from my perspective anyway, when they kind of do that same kind of spread between the blade and the backspacer. It looks cool. On the blade, may as well go into it. We can kind of see, if you are holding it and you go down the blade, it kind of tapers off into a nice thinner stock profile up front. But then as you get down towards the tip, they definitely expand it out, which to me obviously is useful because it is flat on top if you really, really had big hands and wanted to choke up on the tip like this. But more than anything, when they do that on a blade, it's to add additional strength to the tip so that you don't necessarily snap it if you're, I don't know, murdering a fish in the marine environment, trying to utilize the full anti-corrosion matters of Vanax. Maybe you're breaking the neck of a fish or something. I really don't know. But it's a cool profile and one that's kind of found throughout the rest of them. So love that. The flipper tab itself, as I've shown in other videos, but I'll continue to do so, super awesome. Like, look at the tolerances there as that hides into the top of that knife. It can only really be matched by some of the custom division knives, but the tolerances there are unreal. It is rounded and beveled inside here so that as you flip it out, your finger naturally falls into the top, and it's just nice and smooth. No pinch points, no rough spots. Just beautiful. Just beautiful. The jimping itself on the top of the flipper tab, or the grip point, as you can kind of see, definitely useful. And versus the Quantum, maybe I'll grab the Gen 2 here to show this. Whereas the Quantums, where are we here? The Quantum kind of builds in the top flipper tab into the top of the actual handle, which is cool. But my preference is this new style, which is kind of the F95 style. So I shouldn't say the new style, it's like their oldest knife. But I kind of like this because your finger falls into it, and instead of trying to grab the tip, it's just a little further back, right? So if you have smaller or medium hands, it's just easier to find that flipper tab. And on a 4-inch blade, every inch counts. That's what she said. Let's put that away. So nice and smooth. The backspacer, like I talked about, is just well done, and I think it looks great. I love how the backspacer matches the bead, right? The lanyard bead, and it matches the clip. The clip is definitely a point of beauty on this. I think it looks so good. Look at all this micro milling on here. Hopefully the camera can focus. I'm trying to move the light around for you. But you can see all this detail work on the clip. Just looks so good. And then that detail work flows right onto the carbon scales where it's kind of, you know, drilled out, drilled and milled. It just looks so good. And then as you roll towards the blade here, beautifully centered, no concerns. And then you see that titanium liner for that inset liner, which is just beautiful. Or not inset, but liner lock knife, just beautiful. Now it is running on multi-row bearings, MRBS, and I don't know, do they actually, on these guys, do they put that on the top? I can't remember. I'm trying to do this, yep, in front of the backspacer. So let's grab my trusty light here somewhere. I don't know where it's hiding. I'm going to pause and find it, one sec. And through the magic of cinema, we have MRBS right in front of the backspacer. Hopefully you can see that and the camera's not going to be freaking out. I need to figure out a way to do this better. And I also need to stop procrastinating. Come on, catch up. There we go. MRBS, it's right here, basically, inside that beautiful little titanium liner. So MRBS, what is MRBS? I've talked about this before. Multi-row bearing system. Think of it as, instead of a standard bearing on a track, so you kind of have two circles, like a donut, and you'll have bearings inside a tray or support like that, right? MRBS is basically kind of similar factor, I guess you'd say, a little bit thicker of a kind of a washer outside, but the balls, instead of being in a track like that, they're kind of like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, obviously closer together, but in a pattern like that, they kind of do like pinwheels. That's what I've been kind of trying to say. And I apologize for being like brutal at drawing, but it's 3 bearings in a row on this model and in lines like a pinwheel. So there you go. Versus kind of the roller bearings, which is similar, except instead of them being at an angle, actually, they're kind of straight in a track. And I always say they're like hot dogs on a hot dogs on a roller. That's what their rollers would be. Roller bearing system. Is that what they call it, RBS, or is it like roller single row roller bearing, SRRBS, I think, single row roller bearing system. And then from there they have another one called multi-row roller bearing system, which is a different ball of wax itself, but really cool. So this guy's multi-row bearings, and a step down from this is their obviously single bearing system, or their single SRBS, single row bearing system, which is more traditional from what a lot of people know. And there's nothing wrong with it. They both work great. From my experience, they tend to run real nice when they're dry or just degreased, and super easy to maintain. And then I guess the main advantage to multi-row bearing versus single row would be, I guess, stiffness, right? So if you're flexing flexing this blade inside that fish's neck, and you've got side to side, you're getting more surface area and increasing the strength at that joint. So versus a standard pivot on a 1.5 mil bearing side to side, you're not going to ever notice it, but maybe the fish will experience it. I don't know why I'm saying that. What else can we talk about? All the pivots on this guy is Shirogorov's standard proprietary tool, which is not really that proprietary. It's basically just a flathead screw, just a little bit wider. So what I'm going to do is kind of show you that tool bit. May as well. It kind of comes in this nice little setup, but there's your tool. That's what it looks like. Goes in the end of the bit, and as you can kind of tell, it is basically a screwdriver. Now you can use, obviously, well, you can in a pinch use a screwdriver. Please don't. You're going to mar it all up and make it look messy. Or you can use like a penny. As per, I used to use this guy on a bunch of. Sorry, just dropped my little bit there. I used to use this on hinderers. So it's copper, right? So it's soft. And are pennies still copper, or are they nickel inside? I think they might be nickel inside, but they're supposed to be anyway. It's a soft metal, so that when you use it on a pivot, it doesn't mar it up. You could also use a folded credit card, but that is the magic bit that Shirogorov suggests. Come on using it as a tool. So there you go. That is it. So using Magic Bit Cinema, this will disappear. Boom, and that is gone. So there we go. I've talked about the knife, I've talked about the cool bead, the hardware, real nice in that it's got that blue kind of anodization to it, the titanium liner lock. The action on the multi-row bearings are unbelievable, and as I like to say, if you put the knife up, it shouldn't fall on its own. So I'm confident saying as you lower this down, just about any point, it's not going to fall, and it gets harder and harder as you get kind of into this zone, right? Because that's a pretty long, heavy blade, but it's not falling. And then with a little flick, right, you can just kind of see, I'm holding the bead, but a little flick comes down, super easy, and it's just so controlled. Absolutely beautiful knife. Reminder, I do have a microphone in the bottom corner of this, so as the bead smacks the board, it's going to sound a lot louder than it is, but I can assure you this is not getting any abuse. So that was a good angle. Look at this. Oh. Like, just so smooth. The Shirogorovs just tend to float home, and they just feel unlike any knife that I actually own. Like, or not that I own, but in the other brands that I carry, they just float so delicately home and feel so smooth. And as you go down the line and get into the roller bearings, it's just even more like, it's like it slows it down. Whoop, whoop. Okay, it's just smooth as butter. Rollers are unbelievable. Multi-row bearings are unbelievable as well. So loving it. So we talked about the ergos, talked about the jimping, the blade is beautiful. The Shirogorov logo is etched onto the blade, or not etched, I think it's an ano on there, which looks good. My preference would be not to have anything on the blade. In fact, I would like to even have the Vanax kind of stamped up here instead. That makes a lot more sense to me, because when you're using a blade, that'll probably just wear off over time. Not a huge fan of that, but at the same time, there's a cost to moving it elsewhere, and I think these are what, $1,100 or $1,200 table. Now easily $1,500, $1,600, $1,700 on the secondary or more. Like for a like new in box version, yeah, $1,800 quite easily in 2023 in July. It's only going to go up over time with these models. As you look at like an icebreaker, there's 100 of those, and right now $2,000 to $2,500 anytime, and it's got basically the same table. They're highly collectible, highly desirable in these configurations with Vanax, And just a super, super cool story to the knife, and just a beautiful knife overall. Just once it's in your hand, you can appreciate all the cool colors and deep blue and turquoise and teals and all that cool stuff. It's just a beautiful knife. As well, on that liner lock, do we have a... I don't remember. We do have a... Yeah, we do have a lock bar insert on there. Metal insert, which is awesome. No over travel stop, obviously, because you don't need it, but you do have a lock bar insert there, and that tunes the materials, right, between titanium and the blade. You don't want that to kind of get stuck, and over time, obviously, you can replace that in the event that you want to, but to me, I don't think anyone's going to be utilizing this knife to that capacity. As well, the milling on the inside of this is a thing of beauty. And despite my real crappy little light here, almost swore there, it's all milled out beautifully and has a lot of weight savings in the handle. So it does not feel like a heavy knife at all in your hand. In fact, it's not a heavy knife in any respect. So we've got that, got the milling on the inside, and a nice thick captive pivot system on the hardware so that it's not spinning around when you're tightening things down, utilizing your beautifully machined tool, because no one ever uses a screwdriver on this. And you've got a fantastic knife with a cool story, and you know, a blade material that is very uncommon in the Shirogorov line, other than some of their some models have it, but not many, which is so cool. When that Vanax just looks so good. Just beautiful knife. So there you go. That is the Shirogorov Aquatic. And I think I've talked about everything that you guys want to hear. Now it's just about kind of showing you. If you've made it this far in the video, I salute you. I also say this. When you guys get these, don't cut the lanyard off. People just see it and they go, oh, let's just cut it off. You know, whether you want it or not, that's great, but these command a very high resale value, and as soon as you cut that string, you're probably taking $200 off this knife. So don't do that. You know, if you want to untie it, go ahead, but it's highly collectible. Okay, on the other side of the bead as well, it's got a cool, nice little logo, or tool mark, I guess, hardware tool. And then the lanyard itself, as you can see, it's tied into the back spacer, unlike the Stellar, where, you know, the Stellar, they drill right through it. A bit of an eyesore, but some people love it. Some people aren't big fans of it. You know, I wish they would have gone the back spacer route on the Stellar, but I think it just kind of adds to the thickness of it. It looks cool. Whereas on this guy, obviously, they've gone the more traditional route, integrating it into that back spacer, which looks fine, and from the side you don't look at a big hole. Very practical, yet functional. I think they did that really, really well. And then from there, obviously the pocket clip I talked about, but you know what? Their pocket clips are some of the best. And what's so cool about it is actually, like, it's not like the tang on it isn't in one spot on the knife. It's not like a full size of the clip. It's actually angled on one side. Come on, focus on it, big guy. Right here, it's on this side. And on the lock bars of the F95s and stuff, it leans on the frame versus the lock bar. So that's kind of why they do that, but honestly, you just need a little bit touching, and it goes in your pocket. Super smooth, super easy, and it's just well done. You can kind of see it there, how it's on the one side, and one side only. And then I'm assuming if you wanted to adjust that, if you had to, it would be on the inside, which it is, just on the inside here. There's a screw, come on man, here. Yeah, there's a screw just inside here that attaches it internally, which is nice. Kind of just hides it nicely. Nice little touch. So it is all around the same as the Terrace. It's the same as the Ignis, and I would assume identical to the Wind whenever that one comes out. Or what do you think it's called? The Tornado or the Blow? You know, it's white and it's Blow, the Coke. Anyway, I think it's It's a little late for me here. It's pretty late, so I apologize about that. My mind is not as sharp as it normally is, and when it normally is, it's not very sharp in the first place. So there you go. That is the F3 Aquatic, or the F3NS, if you want to call it that, Aquatic, from Shirogorov. Limited edition with the Vanax Blade. And beautiful knife, absolutely stunning. And this guy, I believe, this is in my personal collection now, but I get asked about it all the time, so I think it'll probably be on the way out here shortly. So just to help somebody out and pass it along. But I definitely will miss this one because it's probably the coolest of the bunch, just from that Vanax right there. Very unique. And they're getting harder to be found in mint or like new in box. People carry these things and they, come on man, don't use your knives. They're art. They're not to be used. I joke, obviously. All right, guys. Well, that is it for me. Have yourselves a great week, and thanks for stopping by. Check out the website bladezilla.ca, and until next time, we will catch you later. Peace.